In the United States, there are approximately 240 million calls to 911 each year, and 5 million of these calls originate in LA County. Interestingly enough, it is estimated that 80% of these calls are 911 non-emergent calls. To date, the U.S. has roughly 6,800 public safety answering points and an estimated 1,500 dispatchers in every largely populated city. One report states that this misuse has begun in the last decade and is directly related to the increased accessibility of cellular phones. In 2009, a study done in California showed that 26% of 911 calls were abandoned due to increased hold times, meaning callers hung up because their call was not answered in an appropriate amount of time. Misuse and abuse of the 911 system is a common problem that leads to extended wait times for true emergent callers, delayed responses to true emergencies associated with occupied emergency vehicles, and increased expenses on local government agencies. On average, the cost to transport a non-emergent patient to the hospital costs between $400 and $500. Non-emergent ambulance transports costs are not reimbursable by insurance companies, causing the cost to fall into local government systems and taxpayers. These facts alone demonstrate a need for action to increase public awareness about the proper use of the 911 system in order to avoid wasteful spending of resources. Misuse and abuse are described as intentional and unintentional calls. For the purpose of this topic, I will focus on what we'll call intentional 911 calls. As noted previously, a large portion of 911 calls can be classified as non-emergent, and examples of non-emergent calls are calls that include non-injury traffic collisions, a car that's been broken into that you discover the next day, simple things of that nature. Some of the most common abuses are non-medical related matters, such as directions, times of specific sporting events, or what time the garbage man picks your garbage up the next morning. Callers occasionally represent an exaggerated emergency 911 call stating shots were fired when they witnessed no such thing, in order to get a quicker emergency response. Another recognized phenomenon is termed lonely complaints. These calls may originate from elderly people whom report an emergency when an emergency responder cannot find an emergency at all when they get on scene. The callers may be mentally ill, seeking company, or suffer from delusions. The trickle-down effect is felt in local hospitals as demonstrated by hospital emergency room overcrowding. Some studies from the National Academy of Sciences Institute of Medicine published information about overcrowding of emergency rooms, which leads to the slow and poor quality of care. High cost of emergency room care drives expenses up and puts strain on the nurse-to-patient ratio. Increased use of hallways and longer wait times for more critical patients. This study also showed an increase in risk of morbidity secondary to delayed times in recognizing critical patient conditions. The misuse of emergency medical personnel and ER overcrowding leads to what we like to call burnout. In the emergency medical services, they've experienced a high rate of burnout due to 24-hour shifts, increased number of calls. The burnouts led to poor quality of patient care and lower patient satisfaction. The public abuse of the 911 system, decreased sleep, and feelings of underappreciation are all factors leading to burnout. More recently, with ER overcrowding, Orange County Fire Authority was forced to review their current policy on diversion. Diversion simply means that wait time in the ER lobby exceeded the set standard of safety, which in most cases is 3 to 4 hours. Patients that are not critical must be rerouted to the next receiving facility, which may be several minutes away, causing longer emergency vehicles occupancy. This poses a problem for a true emergency, leading to the delay in life-saving interventions, and also increased frustration experienced by the emergency medical staff. It is believed that in the U.S., it's unclear expectation about when to call 911. The National Emergency Number Association published guidelines when civilians should utilize 911 systems. However, There is no set national standard, making exceptions extremely ambiguous. Educating the public of appropriate use of the 911 system must take place in order to raise public awareness of the conscious and overuse of the system. The benefit of implementation of public education is that this method does not necessitate supplementary dispatchers or equipment, which may be a cheaper approach than implementation of other systems. In Wakefield, Massachusetts, officials implemented a system in which non-emergent first-time callers are sent packets of information regarding appropriate use of the 911 system. This education demonstrated lower incident of the misuse of the emergency medical systems, and in some states, abusing of the 911 system has resulted in fines, prosecution, and some individuals may even face jail time. Studies done over the past 5 years demonstrated the introduction of that 311 system, which significantly decreased wait time for the true emergency 911 calls. In conclusion, overuse and abuse of the 911 emergency alert system leads to emergency room overcrowding, unnecessary use of limited resources, and burnout on EMS personnel. True emergent callers are forced to wait longer times, and care may be delayed in life-threatening circumstances. National and local campaign increase public awareness, set penalties for individuals that abuse the 911 emergency alert system, and many solutions to the misuse and abuse of the 911 system. Overall, the simple answer of misuse and abuse of 911 is education. So please educate your family, your friends, and don't become part of the 80% of misusers here in California. Thank you very much.